I call myself a Disney corporate refugee.
Meet Bryan Yates, who trains high-capacity creative leaders to shift their perspective, rewrite their approach, and get done with fresh energy.
Things are going to take longer than your ego tells you, and you're not going to see money as quickly as you believe you need to.
In this episode, Bryan and I dive into why entrepreneurs fire themselves, when strengths become weaknesses, choosing a North Star over a why, and overcoming high achiever self-doubt.
That is probably something that I picked up from Disney more than anything, is that you have to hit people in the heart.
Drawing from his background as a Holocaust oral historian, Disney producer, recovering alcoholic, and competitive cyclist, Bryan approached coaching like talent development in sports or artist development in music, focusing on what's already there rather than manufacturing transformation.
I'm living proof to tell you, losing money is not the worst thing that will happen to you. You're going to have to spend money, and it's okay. And at the end of the day, is it going to impact the grand scope of your life? Probably not.
His clients shift from grinding to momentum, from hesitation to confident action, and from disconnection to purposeful impact.
Running a business is scary. Leading teams is scary. We're always going to have to take risks. There are always risks involved, and there are always going to be perils, and there are always going to be moments, right?
Bryan, you call yourself a Disney corporate refugee. Why?
I spent 7 years working within the halls of Disney, and then another 3 or so with an agency that primarily did work with Disney. So even though I was out, I was still in. At some point, it became, for me, necessity to kind of leave it all behind. So that's why I call myself a Disney corporate refugee. It's also a way, I think, of speaking to people who may be working in big corporate life and not really knowing what life outside of corporate life looks like.
And how does, for those that are still there working a corporate life, how does the life outside corporate life look like?
Well, I think that your paycheck becomes a little less stable. It's certainly, I mean, I certainly think that it's not as predictable, right? I think when we go out on our own, things are just not as predictable. We want it to be, and it's part of the reason why we may have chosen being in a corporate life in the first place. It was because we wanted the stability and the consistency and all of that. In my case, it was that even though I did very well at Disney, I was always kind of I felt like a square peg in a round hole, and have a very low threshold for politics and for maneuvering and things like that. So, certainly leaving that, I didn't have that nearly as much, but I also didn't have quite the same level of overwhelm that I had when I worked within Disney. Even owning my own businesses, I still have, I think, which can be very stressful, have less overwhelm than I had at Disney. I think our joke at Disney was always, "Don't bother coming in Sunday if you weren't here on Saturday."
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because this outside corporate life comes with the good and the bad, and sometimes with the ugly. And like with even the corporate life has both.
Sure. I think you sort of you pick your poison, right? You pick and you become comfortable with the decision that you make. And I certainly don't ever mean to talk down that Disney experience. I mean, it was absolutely both grueling and grinding, but it was also incredible. I may sort of say that I got my unofficial MBA by working there, right? I got my MBA without actually having to go to an MBA program, and um, I got to have my hands on a lot of really interesting, cool projects and be part of some cool stuff. I mean, at the end, though, I thought for me there was an expiration date. Like, it was just that it wasn't going to work for what I wanted for me anymore.
You mentioned something interesting because indeed, when you are working inside a business and it's not yours, you have also the opportunity to experiment, but in the same time to learn from others, not just from you doing the work and trying everything by yourself in your own business. And
even so, this entrepreneurial way, it's so popularized nowadays, and I'm guilty of it as well. Still, as the first steps in order to build that experience, real life experience, maybe it's better to be an apprentice in one business or work your way to the corporate ladder for a while until you build that muscle of actually knowing exactly how a business is run, and basically the insights and the things that you cannot learn other way. And on that note, what is not necessarily the biggest insight, but I love to know the principles that you came up out of it, out of Disney, that you're leveraging them right now.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I'm always kind of coming up with new ones, right? And I'm always kind of learning things or seeing things differently. Before Disney, I trained as a historian, right? I mean, I worked as a historian for with Steven Spielberg, and then went to Disney for a while. And but I would say what I learned at Disney is that there are some real soft skills that you have to develop, and you have to develop, and a certain kind of thinking that you have to develop to do well and to move things around and to move projects around. And you have to learn how to work around the way other people think or the way other people bring their egos to the table. And so I wrote about this today on LinkedIn about how important it is to have a North Star. And a North Star isn't for me your why. It isn't any of that. It's like, what am I trying to accomplish? Like, where am I pointed? Where am I going? I think the why is a great idea. And it's very fashionable to talk about the why. And it's very fashionable in coaching programs to talk about know your why. But I think you have to know where you're pointed. And you have to have a really clear idea, not crystal clear, but a very clear idea of where you're going, because where you're going is your destination, right? It's your destination and it's your vision and it's your focus. Your why is the fuel that will get you there. So one of those things about Disney is that you're always selling, right? Like I would spend my year in life, I spent such a long time talking about or telling myself I'm not good at sales, but the reality is in every part of my career, I've always been actually pretty good at sales. And sales is just persuading people to do the thing that they know they want to do, right? And so in the case of Disney, you're always selling, right? You're always having to sell, but you have to sell in a strategic way. And you have to like if even if you're a creative, you have to sell what it is you're creating. You have to sell your vision and you have to bring people along. And because that's the way people put budgets to things is by knowing where you want to go and being passionate with you, right? That's how you get champions. I mean, I actually, in addition to my coaching life, I own a big cycling event. I own a big cycling event where I live, and by big, I mean it's we have 650 people who come from around the world to ride bikes here, and we started it 4 years ago. And but it took us 14 months to get there. So I think another principle, and I don't really have any sort of set ones, is that things are going to take longer than you expect. Actually, things are gonna take longer than your ego tells you, right? And you're not going to see money as quickly as you believe you need to. So, if you don't have the leeway to play, if you don't have the leeway to reinvest, then you have to be very careful about what decisions you're making. So, when we built that event, we had a very clear North Star of what it was we were trying to accomplish, who we were doing it for, and why we wanted to do it. Like some people will build a cycling event and say, doesn't the route speak for itself? And for me, that wasn't good enough. It had to be, it had to have an experience to it and it had to be a thing that would touch people's hearts. So when we did that, I was like, then it became really important to build the right kind of creative deck and treat it as a creative experience so that when we went out asking for partners to come in and give us money to sponsor it, they knew what we were doing. They knew what made us tick. They knew that we knew what our audience wanted. And that's how you get collaborators. That's how you get partners. That's how you get investment. And then it also made it a heck of a lot easier for us to tell our riders, the people who were going to be our primary constituents and stakeholders, why they should spend their money with us. Like if I'm asking someone to spend money with me, whether it's in coaching or coming to an event, I have to make sure that it's relatable and that it touches their heart, right? The story touches their heart. And to me, that is probably something that I picked up from Disney more than anything, is that you have to hit people in the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end of the day, as human beings, we are touched by anything emotional. And if you can connect anything, your career, your side hustle, your passion project to something that people care about, is much more easier to bring them together. Like you mentioned, either sponsors or the participants and so on, or your coaching clients, when they know exactly what they will get out of it, but not just, I don't know, physical things or remuneration, but something that they can feel. And I know that you're big on this part, especially in your coaching, when it comes to tackling the internal stuff, not just the, I don't know, the surface level aspect of a leader. How you go about it? Like how you truly make sure that someone that engage with you see the results they are coming from. And sometimes probably they're not coming from that for that. They're coming for something else, but you made them realize that probably you're here because you need to fix this.
Yeah, they never, ever, ever come to me with the thing, right? They never come to me with something like, oh, I need to do this. It's like, oh no, I need to do that. Here's the thing that I really believe I need. And it's never that, right? The thing I give is never the thing that they actually believe they need on a surface level, right? I wish there is like Rob. I look at other coaches on LinkedIn like Rob Gilbert. I think he's got a great pitch, which is, I will help you build your dream business. I wish I could have a pitch like that, right? It's not what I do, right? What I do is basically help people become better players, right? I think of this like the people who I work with. Someone said this to me the other day, like where I really excel is helping people who are at a point, helping people stay in their business. Not start their business, but helping people stay in their business when they're at a point when they're like, I want to fire myself from my own business. That's the person I'm really good at helping, right? Like that person who comes in and goes, I'm so sick of me. Right? If they're willing to say, I'm sick of me, then we can start having a conversation. I sort of think about that person like the sports player who, when they were young, was super strong and super fast and super agile. And that worked for a few years in their first part of their sports career. But then as they get to kind of the midpoint of their professional sports career, or even a little bit later, like, oh, I'm not as strong as I used to be. I better learn how to play a different way if I want to keep playing. And that's the person who I kind of help.
Indeed, that grind, it's happening there in their business, and they get exhausted and they get that they're spinning their wheels in maybe in vain and so on. And I'd like to ask why that happens, like why they arrive at that point in which they want to fire themselves from their own business. What did you identify?
They usually tell me, but I think that they operate with a certain amount of high functioning burnout. And they're operating by trying to muscle their way through everything, right? They try to, and they've spent maybe their 30s and early 40s going, celebrating the grind and the hustle, but hustle runs out. It just runs out. Like it's really great when you're in your 30s and you can romanticize it, but at some point when all the factors of life come in and you feel like the hub in a wheel and you have all these spokes pulling at you, that tension takes its toll. It just does, right? And owning a business or being a leader or managing teams, my sport is obviously cycling, and it just feels like it can feel like you are on the longest climb in the world that never ever ends, right? You just keep climbing, 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 climbing. And this isn't always like, oh, I'm climbing to the top. It's just like, I'm just climbing. Like, and every pedal stroke starts to feel hard. But I think people also will recognize it in that their leadership isn't working anymore. Their teams are not playing the same way that they used to. They're doing things like, "Oh, I'll just do it myself. Oh, I'll just do it myself. Oh, I'll just do it myself." And that takes a toll. That takes a toll. And no one wants to say I'm burned out. No one wants to say I'm stuck. But at some point, when people are brave enough to say, "Yeah, I'm stuck," or "I'm blocked," or "I'm stalled," you sort of, then it becomes a lot easier to have that conversation, because what's underneath all of that, I don't care if you're in a corporation, you're 42 years old managing in a corporation and you've kind of hit a wall, or if you're managing a team of 10 people, what's underneath all of that stuckness is a fear of, I'm losing leverage, I'm losing relevance. And if we lose that sense, if we start to go, "Oh my gosh, if I'm becoming less relevant as a player," well, then everything else on top of that is a challenge, right? Because if I lose my relevance, what's the next threat? Oh my God, how am I going to make my next paycheck?
Yeah, good point. Because often we don't look at that. We maybe look at things that are less relevant, like the fact that, oh, maybe the workload is too much, or maybe, uh, I feel like this because I didn't sleep too well last night. And probably those are the cases in some parts of our life. But often that internal fight to still be relevant, to still have that source of income, to put food on the table and so on, it's slowly working behind the scenes and putting ourselves down. And what you'll tell those that feel that way? What should they do?
I think you have to assess how you got there. It's not that you're feeling it. What you're feeling is the symptom. It's the outcome of everything you did that got you there. And all the patterns and all the behaviors and all the responses and all the reactions, those are the things that got us there, right? So that's the stuff to assess. And part of the thing is, so I spent a part of my career after my Disney life in the fitness business, right? I was building a fitness brand in Los Angeles, but I was also coaching competitive cyclists, right? And at some point, the strengths that we use to get us to a certain point, they'll work for a while and then they stop working. So, an overworked muscle doesn't get stronger, it breaks. There's a basic physiology to this, right? And I think the mind is also a muscle of sorts, and our emotions are muscles of sorts. And the more they get overused doing the same thing, this idea that they're going to get stronger is preposterous.
Yeah, and it's not wonder that gym goers, they have rest days. They don't work out 10 hours a day. They work out maybe 1.5 hour or 2 hours, depending. That rest is needed. And still, a lot of people struggle with this, to take not just, I don't know, a day off, but to physically disconnect from their device, even if they arrive home from work, or if they work in their own businesses. Even like, speaking from my own experience, it's like working from home, it's a pain sometimes. That's why I try to work from different locations, like a coffee place or working, because it's hard to disconnect. And what should we do in order to put some barriers between us and work or technology, in order to have that space of disconnection?
I think we have to become pretty intentional about actually committing to choosing space and defining what space means for us, right? And I've been very poor at this in my own patterns lately, right? I will often, even though I don't sleep with a phone in my in my room, it might be one of the first things that I look at in the morning, when in fact, what I probably need to do is choose a way of making coffee that's very slow and intentional, and make a point of sitting down and being silent with myself for, 30 minutes before I even open the phone and start connecting to the train. But I have to we have to make the conscious decision to not do the same things the same ways over and over and over. And we also have to be willing to say, what got me here isn't going to get me where I want to go, right? So the people that come to me most often are the ones who have been grinding for so long that they don't have the energy to do that. The other group of people that come to me are ones who, interestingly, are on paper look great, and any of us would go, "Oh my gosh, you've got this accomplishment, you've got these bona fides, and yet they feel uh, they have a complete lack of confidence. Not a complete, but they have a lack of confidence and a lot of self doubt. And then the third people who really come to me are those who look good on paper and have been building something interesting, but they're also realizing like that they still have aspirations of more that they want to build, but the way that they've been doing it is no longer going to sustain them going forward. So those are kind of the three types of people. So it always is about adding in very, in very popular terms, like this is obviously very popular because it's what taught in mindfulness or coaching programs is adding more presence, more intention, more focus, being clear on what it is you're pointing at so that you can say yes to the right things and you can stop saying yes to things that just get in the way. And I think it's becoming more intentional about the decisions that we're making. And sometimes it means making decisions that we've been deferring or afraid to make because we're scared of the cost. So it's not uncommon that I work with people who are at a point where they could use a number two in their business who can help run the operations of things while they go do what they're great at, which may be strategy, or it may be sales, or it may be, bringing in clients or business development, whatever it is, right? But they've been trying to do all things, and you can't play all the instruments be in a band and play all the instruments, right, at the same time. It's just not going to work. It's just not. So you have to go, who's going to be my bass player? Who's going to be the drummer, right? You need a rhythm section, you need a bassist, you need a drummer, you need someone else to play guitar. But if you're trying to play all the instruments, it's just not going to work. And so sometimes the coaching is getting people to see that it's okay to take the scary next step and bring in help, find collaborators, find people that they want to cooperate with. Sometimes it's also getting people to realize that the team they have isn't going to work for them anymore. And it's okay to start moving old team out and bringing new team in. But I think it's in some ways we have to give ourselves permission to make the decisions that seem scary or sometimes that we feel like we don't deserve to make. I mean, I know that when I built my event, I could have built a whole team to produce it. I could have done all of that, right? I could have had the staff, I could have brought it all in, but I decided in a very clear way a couple of things. One, I didn't want to be responsible for for having to foster and grow the talent. And I didn't want to have to be responsible for managing the talent. So my next decision was I also knew that I wanted to create an event that I could have fun at, where I didn't feel like I was so stressed out from the work that I couldn't have fun with the thing that I was creating, because if I did that, it wasn't going to be fun for the riders. It wasn't going to be fun for the guests. So the decision was spend a good chunk of money to work with a team that does this all the time and and bring them in and have them help manage the event, right? And know my lane very specifically. So yeah, there's going to be running a business is scary. Leading teams is scary. We're always going to have to take risks, and there are always risks involved, and there are always going to be perils, and there's always going to be moments, right? Where it's like, what I'm on a roller coaster, and that's part of the deal, right? I think that's part of the deal with life. So, I think a lot of times in what I do in my coaching is also at its very root, helping people understand what their relevance is, what their impact is, what their actual achievements are, and why it's important, and reminding them. And this is a really important thing for coaches, reminding them that why they need to have faith and why they need to have trust, and why, in some ways, we have to choose smart optimism. And we choose smart optimism, and it isn't like we're playing lottery. It's like, hey, let's act as if this is going to come out, but we'll also do all the work that goes along with it.
Yeah, that's a smart way to go about it, to put into perspective. Indeed, because at the end of the day, if you start from perspective of negativism and you ah I'm gonna try, but I'm sure I'm gonna fail, then why are you trying in the first place, right? And To go a bit back in what you share, you mentioned there are a few things like self-doubt, fear, and especially self-doubt in the context of people that already achieved something and they are still feeling this. And I'm dealing with this quite a few times with my clients as well, in which I see them at this level of achievements and accolades and so on, but they still don't feel worthy of what they are doing. Or if they try new things, they're still feeling that self-doubt crippling in. And of course, it starts with awareness and so on. But if we want to make this a bit practical, how they can improve that, how they can get better at accepting themselves the way they are, the way they do things, and so on.
It's work. That's work, right? I think part of self-doubt, you could say that, great, I want you to feel self-doubt. It's part of the process. It's part of the process, right? We have to build trust all the time. And trust is just another word for confidence, and confidence is another word for faith. And we build trust not only in those around us that we have relationships with, but our primary relationship is the one that we have with ourselves. And we forget that. We forget that our relationship with ourselves is so important. And sometimes we have to build that self-trust within ourselves, no matter how accomplished we are. Every year we have this event, and every year the next day I'm like, oh God, no one's going to show up next year. No one's going to, right? You got to get, and part of it is that process. And it's a reminder of keep doing the work, keep doing the training, keep doing the stuff that keep sharpening our skills, keep sharpening our talents, and keep asking for help. Keep asking for cooperation and keep reminding yourself that we're not really doing it alone. I think that that's a big trap, right? That we say, I have to be the guy, I have to be the gal, I am the center of all things, and I have to do it all myself. And I think that that's a really perilous path, right? That believing that I am the one, it's just not true. Like, I think so. A very practical way to do this, here's a good example. I was working with someone, a very talented thinker, um, who had gone from being a professor and was moving into a private practice. And they were used to talking in front of groups, not huge groups necessarily, but they were used to communicating and ideas in front of people. And one day that person came to me and said, oh my God, I've just been invited to do a keynote in front of 300 presidents and chief executives. I was like, great, you got what you wanted. He's like, that's not what I wanted. I said, that's exactly what you wanted. You can play. You've talked about how you're not legitimate because you haven't written a book, because you don't have an expensive podcast, because you don't have a million followers. Like, this is it. You got what you wanted. You're now in the big leagues.
Then fear starts to cripple in and so on. But that practice and that facing that fear is so important.
It was face. But the other thing that we worked on was like, listen, this is not about you. This is not about you. This is about the 300 people that you're speaking in front of and the one person that you decide you're going to have a conversation with. Everything that you talk about is not about you. Is not about you. If you are making it about you, then you're putting your ego in it and you're putting your worry in it. And because what your mind is telling you is, oh my God, if I screw this up, I'm never going to get paid again. Well, let's look at the universe. Let's look at your history. I want you to write down every time you thought something wasn't going to work and what actually happened. Take an inventory, right? That's a really easy way of saying, take an inventory. When has something worked out? When has something worked out? And then on the other side of the page, you go, when have things not worked out? In 99% of people, I make this number up, you're going to find that the things on the left side that worked out are going to far outweigh the things that are on the right side that didn't work out. So you just have the odds of numbers working in your favor. Besides, people want you to succeed. So keep going. And sometimes it's just one day, 1 hour at a time.
This reminds me of something that I read recently in Stephen Bartlett's book, Diary of a CEO, and he mentioned how he basically started online. He set 1 hour every single day from 7 to 8 p.m. first to write his idea, then to simplify the idea that much that enters in one single tweet. And back then you could write just 140 characters. And he did that every single day. until people start reading his ideas and people start providing feedback and so on. And those repetitions, those practices, even that at the beginning, like every one of us was scared about it, or people will think, me sharing my ideas online and so on, and same with speaking on stage and such. And practice is an underrated way to do it. And like anything, like your favorite sport, cycling, like if someone new to this goes now on a bike, probably won't be able to bike more than 1 kilometer or something without feeling pain and such. But then looking at others that, not sure, what's your record of how many kilometers you did in one take?
I mean, it's been a long time. I don't do it anymore. But I think 320 kilometers in a day was my biggest.
That's impressive. And for those listening, to put things into perspective, in let's say big competitions like Tour de France, they do like 100 something a day, but that's a day. And for
They do like 2 bigger days will do 220K days. But what you're also talking about in an event like that, it's 21 days in a row with a couple of rest days. Like they maybe have 2 rest days where they take a day off. So it's not just that one day. It's like imagine doing 21 races over a 23-day period.
yeah, it's insane. I always admire that commitment, not just to the effort, but like you say, like North Star to arrive to Paris and get that yellow jersey and so on. And that's the thing, right? Without that North Star, is so hard to do almost anything. And still, most people struggle to find theirs. How do you find yours in your case after leaving Disney?
I think it's a lot of chipping away, right? I think it's a lot of figuring out what you don't want, and I think it's a lot of shedding, right? What's the great Michelangelo? Was it Michelangelo? Sorry, yeah, Michelangelo was like he looks at this giant block of granite, and this is probably apocryphal. He looks at this giant block of granite and sees, and sees the David within it, right? And he starts just chipping away and it emerges. I mean, what this is all a process of chipping away. Some experimenting, some asking others, some getting guidance, some just throwing yourself at it and going, okay, well, that sucks. I don't want to do that anymore. I mean, in some ways, you have to kind of, you kind of got to go touch the hot burner a few times and go, I don't want that in my life. So, I didn't want the definition of corporate success. I didn't want, I've gone through a couple of business partnerships that have been very costly for me. And the reason I got into them was I had made some of the wrong decisions and started from the wrong assumptions. And I think that's probably the biggest terror for a lot of business owners is losing money, right? I think that's probably the biggest fear. And I'm living proof to tell you losing money is not the worst thing that will happen to you. You're going to have to spend money and and it's okay. And at the end of the day, is it going to impact the length of the grand scope of your life? Probably not. It will impact in the time, but I think we have to chip away and start figuring out more and more what it is we want. So where I'm at in my career with my North Star, I knew I still maintain the same North Star for the event I own for that business. And that has been to become an iconic gravel cycling event, one that gets recognized as one of the greats. And it does that because of the guest experience that we create in the place that we create it and the heart that we put into it. And I'm going to do it until I don't want to do it anymore. When I don't want to do it, I'll either sell it or we'll just land it and call it a day. But I want to do it as long as I love it. In my coaching business, I'm at a point in my life where I have decided this is the thing I want to do for the next 20 plus years. I want to help impact people's lives by a coaching relationship, by writing, by speaking, by workshopping, right? By having workshops. I want to be able to do that for the next 20 years. That makes every other decision then pretty easy for me. It means I have to hire people or bring in people to help me with the parts of things that I don't really like to do. So that might mean paying someone to help me with direct outreach. I think that you as consultants and you as coaches and you as entrepreneurs can expect that you're gonna need to do some direct outreach at some point. That's like, we can't rely on referrals anymore. There's so if I look around LinkedIn, there's everyone's a coach, everyone's a consultant, everyone's a ghostwriter. And that's kind of a new phenomenon. I've been on LinkedIn for 20 plus years, right? And that's sort of a more recent phenomenon. And now what we see is, oh my God, I'm terrified of AI. You know what? I think that people are going to age out of traditional business, corporate business, a lot quicker and a lot earlier than they have in the past. In my generation and my parents' generation, it was you get to a certain point and you're now maybe making too much money, or you become the obvious person that a company's going to let go of and someone younger is going to come in. Well, I think now that we're adding automation and AI into things, that's going to happen a lot more quickly. And you've got this generation, this huge generation of millennials who at the same time have this idea of wanting more fulfillment in their life. They're naturally going to split out of this. And so what's the next step you do? You're like, oh, well, I'm going to become a consultant. I'm going to become a coach or whatever. So you have to be willing to bring people in to do the stuff that you're not necessarily inclined to do. So keep chipping away. It was like, how do you find your North Star? So for me, it was that's exactly what I want to do. And now I know that I have to invest in making that a reality.
Yeah, indeed. And to touch a bit on the things that you mentioned regarding plus chipping away, but as well when it comes to bringing people in. And they kind of go hand in hand because if you don't make space, it's hard to see exactly what you have to do. And also, some of those things that you're chipping away might be useful to build something else if you have the right people to help with. And because if you think about it, the example that you gave with the sculpture of David by Michelangelo, maybe that gravel that remained after the sculpture was built was used for something else, maybe with mortar in a foundation or something. And that's the beauty of things, right? Like, because often we think about removing things with the sense of, oh, I'm going to lose that. But in reality, nothing is lost. And even those things that we might never use ever again, if we let go, again, we create space for the things that matter and we keep on going back to space. And this is so important. Like having that freedom of not doing anything and just be with yourself and thinking out, the great ideas come then. The breakthroughs, the things that most of us get stuck for maybe even years without that pause to have that space of thinking. And yeah, I was guilty as well a lot of the times when it comes to not asking for help, not just from the perspective of hiring someone to a coach or consultant, but also from the perspective of hiring help inside my business. And I was, and I still believe for some people it's better to run everything as a solopreneur. I was a solopreneur for so many years, for more than 10 years, especially now with AI that you can have technical help from these tools. And I truly believe that there will be people out there that will build $1 million businesses and probably will have $1 billion business solo, just an individual with technology. But that's not for everyone. And I discovered that it's not for me. Now I run the business with my wife and we are actively asking for help and trying to hire in different parts of our business because it's not sustainable anymore.
I think that's right. I think that most of us are going to want to choose. I think most people watching this and watching you are making this decision to have a business because of the freedom that it brings. And it doesn't bring, it doesn't bring freedom like I get to do everything I want all the time. But I think what it means is a kind of freedom of not having to be pawn in some other corporation or someone else's business or a bit player in someone else's play, right? I think it's a bit more, it's the autonomy that we're buying into. But autonomy, it means we want that autonomy to stay sustainable because frankly, the older we get, the less employable we are, right? The less employable in someone else's business we are. That I ain't nobody hiring a 55-year-old Brian to do anything for them because I'll be viewed as too old, too out of step, too whatever it is, right? Too not in the game anymore, whatever it is. So yeah, but yet we got to pay our bills for the rest of our life. So sustainability, if sustainability is not on your mind, I encourage you to put it on your mind and asking for help, working with others, doing exercising with others, right? Group fitness with other, what business with others, all super important.
100%. And currently, for example, I'm going through a rehab period because I broke my ACL, and I try to do at home, but the energy and the effort I do when I'm on the off days from the clinic are not the same like the ones that I do when I go there. Like there, I give my like 200%. At home, I'm maybe at 70%. I'm surrounded by people doing the same thing, and we kind of push each other forward and so on, and it's so different. And I think that's the also when it comes to business, this misconception that we have to do everything ourselves and we are best at it. And again, I kind of talked to my older self that was believing that he can do anything by himself, and I was so that wrong. And at the end of the day, we arrive at
You
this.
can, but let me ask you, how quickly did that burn you out?
I went through two phases of burning out. Like the first one was quite fast because I went, I started my business while working a full time job. So that was fast. Like after about 2 years, and I already quit my full time job like 1 year in my side hustle. But after from 2 years of starting, I wasn't able to do anything for like weeks. And second time, same. Like I even that I was running still only my business while doing everything alone wasn't sustainable. At some point, I cracked, and that was quite bad because I end up in like very bad state when it comes mental wise. Like I entered depression and so on, and that took like almost 1 year to recover. So for anyone listening, it's not fun.
Will you say that again? How long did it take you to recover?
1 year.
Yeah, listen to that, people. Listen to Gabe. 1 year. Imagine trying to operate at the pace that you feel like you need to operate in your business while trying to recover. That is no joke.
Yeah, and basically, I like if it weren't my wife to take care of the strings of the business would have died because I wasn't able to do much. So that's the thing. Like we often think that we have unlimited energy, especially when we are young and we think that nothing can break us. But this decision of taking more and not making space and not chopping down other things, and the other thing you mentioned to hire help, it's in my case at least was the best thing that I ever did. To ask for help and actually hire people to do things that, and even things that I was the best at, but I didn't have the drive after more than 10 years of doing them. I hire people for that as well because I was like, yes, I still enjoy it. I still find it fun, but in the same time, it's draining me. It's like it was like a roller coaster of energizing, draining, and that wasn't fun. So yeah, a lot of think about when it comes to the way we run our business, our lives, and so on. But most importantly, if there is one big takeaway from our conversation, it is chopping out things that doesn't matter and hire the things that we are not enjoying doing at the end of the day.
I mean, I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I think about when someone says recovery to me, whether that's burnout recovery, ACL recovery, addiction recovery, codependence recovery, whatever it is, right? I, I sort of put on, I try to go back to that point where I was tapped out and said, things had to change. And in that moment, and I can remember it very clearly for me, it's happened a couple of times, is that you go from taking in, like, if this is my camera and I'm looking at all the information coming at me and I have all the things in frame, people, lots of people, trees, cars, whatever, and I'm trying, like, when you're in this burnout state, you're trying to take in all the information at once at the same time and make sense of it all at the same time. But when you go, "Hey, I have to recover," you just need to focus on one really small thing at a time, right? You can't, so This idea of like, I'm going to take it all in and all the data and it's my responsibility as a leader is like, yeah, I think that that's probably not true. I think you have to make a commitment to going, I'm looking at that. That's the thing I'm looking at. That's right there. And tomorrow we're gonna reassess. Is that the thing I still need to be looking at, or do I need to look at other things? You have to commit to saying, I'm gonna look at one, two things at the most, because I can't take on board any more data.
Yeah, exactly. And often we have this long to-do list and like a lot of things in the frame, like you mentioned. And the mental space and the energy that you have is not meant for that. Like, I love the thing that you said that you reassess next day and so on. And maybe you can do that even each week, each month to see exactly what actually moved the needle in our life or business, rather than just expecting that magic will happen and something will just fall into place. But looking at data, looking like, oh, I actually spent, I don't know, 10 hours this month outreaching, but I spent just 2 hours creating a amazing lead generator, or how's more popular, lead magnet, but that brought in more business than the entire hour spent outreaching. And just small things like this, like seeing exactly, analyzing the data, and doesn't have just to be about marketing or revenue and so on, but energy wise, like what drained you this month the most?
The goal is not necessarily to become the strongest athlete, right? I think of, in the case of cycling, it's not always about the strongest person, it's about the most efficient. The person who wins the Tour de France, yes, they're certainly probably one of the most strongest, but for generations, it was also who could be the most efficient, who could manage their resources over that time, and your resources are your energy. And you talk about the mental energy, and since neither one of us is a neuroscientist, I'm gonna quote something that I don't know if it's 100% true, and I'm probably gonna hear from the neuroscientist in my life on this, but the brain is what, a 2 pound, 3 pound organ. I'm told that it consumes, it takes 25% of our caloric energy. So something that maybe weighs not even a that maybe weighs 2% of your whole body uses 25% of your caloric demands. That is a huge energy suck, right? So, how you're using your mental energy, how you're spending those mental cycles, if you thought about that in the same way you thought about how you use your body at the gym or whatever sport you're in, you'd probably treat it a little bit differently.
Exactly. And there is such thing as mental fitness, and that mental fitness needs as well recovery and needs rest and so on. But I think while all this technology is a blessing, in the same time it's probably going to end the humankind, and not in the some apocalyptical Terminator Matrix end of way, but probably will arrive at some point in the future in which, due to too much consumption of technology, most of humans will be, I won't say dumb, but won't be able to use our cognitive power like we use today.
I think we're seeing some of this with AI. You can see it looking around social media where people, to me, not everyone, but there are examples that we can see of people clearly outsourcing what they should think to AI. We can imagine people out there going, just tell me what I should think, AI bot. Just tell me what I should think. Just tell me what I should do. And that's a little terrifying, right? Because AI is just designed to be a sycophant. It's going to be a yes person, right? It doesn't have the capacity to say, no, you ding dong, go do something else. A little bit of less of this and a bit more of this, right? And our natural inclination as humans is to seek connection, and it's to seek confirmation. And because we find safety in connection and confirmation, AI is just going to do what you tell it, right? So, yeah, I think that that there is something to what you're saying here, is that we're outsourcing our responsibility to ourselves, we're outsourcing our accountability, we're outsourcing our integrity. And that, I think, it tends to be pretty scary.
Yeah, it is. And in the same time, I also want to look at bright side of things and technology. Since, especially with AI, if we don't outsource our thinking, by we outsource our mundane tasks or the things that we don't enjoy doing, and have more time to do the things that energize us, the things that are more fulfilling, or spending more time outside. Like, I got the chance now, surprisingly, with my rehab, because I have to go a lot of the times outside, not just to walk, but as well to go to the rehab center, because all that time I don't spend in front of my laptop. And it's like almost half a day. And I forgot how nice it is. Like, just to go outside and move your body. Even that I consider myself a quite active person. Not all the time. I have periods. But thinking, it just remind me like, oh, that's nice that I can offload some of the things that I used to be doing to AI to save some time and spend more time outside walking or exercising and so on. And that's the future that I would like to look at. How about you?
Well, there you go. You've got your North Star, right? You define what you want. You've basically just, so let's write that down, Gabe, right? This is what you're pointed at, that this is the life that I want. Then you can say, how does this next decision, this next action, this next thing that I'm telling myself to do, does this next comment on someone else's LinkedIn feed serve that or take away from that? And it becomes, right, then this is why Gabe has just pointed out, everyone, why it's important to have a North Star, right? Because you can make decisions and then you get to become accountable to it, right? Then you go, oh, I'm going to choose to make this comment instead. Great. Well, now I get to be responsible for this. And I think that's a great illustration right there.
Yeah, and everything is a decision. Like, you are one decision away from a totally different life. Speaking of decisions, if someone decides that resonates a lot with what you shared today and want to work with you, where they can find you?
So you can find me at Locomotive Coaching. There's no E in locomotive. That came from when I was a cycling coach. And I was sort of attracted to old socialist realism imagery. Like I loved old Soviet realist imagery. Um, so it's Locomotive Coaching. You can find me there. I do a newsletter that I've just started. In fact, your fellow countryman, Adriana Tika, convinced me to do a newsletter. I'm getting all the good stuff out of Romania these days. So I've got a newsletter. So if you're not ready to work with me, start with that. And I only send it out once a month. And the whole concept is just how do we make small shifts in order to get bigger results? So, shifting our perspective, shifting our story, shifting our awareness, shifting our energy, shifting our action. And so, I try to write an article a month and just send that out in an email. You can do that. You can also just find me on LinkedIn and start a simple conversation. I love to have simple conversations. We can have a phone call. I'm never going to pitch you. Like whether you want to work with, if you want to work with me or not, that's totally on you. I never actually pitch. I let the experience do the selling and the talking.
And usually that's the best solution. Lovely. I'll put all these links down below in the show notes. And Bryan, I would like to conclude with one small shift those watching or listening can do in less than 1 week in order to chop something out from the day-to-day things that they do.
Awesome. Love it. Here's one that I just got into a little commenting fest on in social media earlier today. I don't know about you, but probably 20 times a day, I'm going to get spun up on a small detail. And I'm going to start, well, my mind is going to want to start chasing this thing around, and it's going to create some kind of anxious cycles of thinking, right? And in those anxious cycles of thinking, where we start obsessing or ruminating or future tripping, right? Like if you catch yourself starting to write a story about the future or your past and having those conversations, what I would really want you to do is stop and pause. I'm going to give two things here. Pause. First of all, use this acronym, pause. Perhaps another unexpected solution exists. So you're going to be creating a story for yourself. I want you to pause, and then I want you to say, what is actually true? What is actually true in this thing that I'm telling myself? And then follow along with what am I actually believing? because truth, what is true and what we're believing is actually two different things. So what I would want for you to do is put a little space between what is true and what you're actually believing. Because if it's something that you're believing, you can put that aside, and you can always come back to what is true. So you may tell yourself, "Oh my God, I'm not qualified to be this speaker at this event." That really true? Or is that something you're believing? Then if it's something you're believing, let it go, right? So for me, I'm a big fan in coming back to cycling, big fan of this one principle: pack light, travel far. In other words, you don't need to be carrying a whole lot of baggage around if you're trying to travel far, and beliefs are baggage. So if you can pack light with what is true, then you've got something to operate from. You've got a much healthier stance and place to center yourself.
Absolutely. And beautiful ending to our conversation. Thank you so much, Bryan, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Gabe. What a great time and a great talk with you.